live streaming this event. I hereby call the public hearing to order. Again, this is to address the ordinance to amend the Millersville Borough Code of Ordinances, Chapter 380, zoning, to modify certain specific criteria and area and bulk requirements for traditional neighborhood development. We have a few people who are going to speak before we open it up to public comments. So I just want to say thank you all for taking the time to come. I'm glad that we got to reschedule in a larger room where we could accommodate everyone. Tonight we're looking to hopefully hear everyone's comments. Our solicitor, Giselle Cleary, is here and she has some information to share about this process.
Okay, thank you. This proceeding tonight is a public hearing on a petition filed by Garmin Builders of Lancaster, LLC, to amend the text of the zoning ordinance, specifically regulations governing traditional neighborhood district in the manner set forth in an ordinance prepared by and provided by Garmin Builders at Lancaster, LLC. This hearing and the consideration of the proposed ordinance are being conducted in a manner required by a state law called the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code, often referred to as the MPC, in order that everyone will know that the borough followed the MPC procedures. I'm going to run through some of the steps that the borough took to comply with state law. First, the borough advertised notice of the public hearing and consideration of the proposed zoning ordinance amendments in the Tuesday, May 26th and Tuesday, June 2 editions of LNP. Because of the overflow crowd, council rescheduled the public hearing to tonight. Council advertised notice of the new date and the new location of the public hearing in the Tuesday, June 23 and Tuesday, June 30 editions of LNP. As required by the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code, a copy of the proposed ordinance to amend the zoning ordinance was provided to the Lancaster County Law Library, the office designated by the Lancaster County Commissioners to file proposed ordinances, and that was done on May 19. Copies of the proposed ordinance to amend the zoning ordinance were provided to both the Millersville Borough Planning Commission and the Lancaster County Planning Commission as required by the MPC. The legal notice for this public hearing satisfied the requirements of the Sunshine Act for advertising a special meeting of council, and notice of the meeting was also posted at the borough offices in accordance with the Sunshine Act. The Millersville Borough Planning Commission reviewed the proposed ordinance at its meeting on March 4, 2026. Lancaster County Planning Commission delegated the review to Lancaster County Planning Department staff and reviewed staff's recommendation at its meeting on May 11, 2026. Therefore, the procedural requirements of the MPC for this hearing have been met. This hearing tonight is required by the municipality's planning code. The purpose of the hearing, as set forth in the municipality's planning code, is to give members of the public an opportunity to state your position and for Borough Council to gauge public opinion. This hearing is a legislative hearing. It is not a quasi-judicial hearing. It is not an administrative hearing. People who wish to speak will not be placed under oath. There is no stenographic record being maintained of the hearing. There is no right to ask questions of witnesses because there are no witnesses. There are no rights to ask questions of members of council because the function of this hearing is for you to state your position to council. The municipality's planning code does not provide for a dialogue with council. In conducting a public hearing, council can establish rules and regulations. In order for anyone to be officially recognized to comment, he or she should go to the microphone. You have been told this is being live streamed, so the people at home need to be able to hear you as well. You should state your name for the record of the hearing. No person should speak for a second time until all persons who have not yet spoken are heard, and council reserves the right to not allow anyone to speak more than once. Council has the right to set time limits for each person wishing to speak at a public hearing. Council has previously established a comment limit of 5 minutes per person, and it is my understanding that council will enforce that existing 5-minute per person regulation, and in fact, there's a clock that will measure the 5 minutes. Council does have the right to set a time to conclude the public hearing this evening. There is no requirement that council go to midnight, 2 a.m., or whatever in conducting a public hearing. If council concludes the public hearing tonight, and if council enacts the ordinance now or at any time in the future, you should be aware that that does not approve any particular development. I know that the developer, as every developer does, has plans showing what the developer hopes to do. But the ordinance simply amends the zoning ordinance, and if council enacts that ordinance, and if the developer desires to proceed, the developer will be required to file plans and get numerous other approvals, including subdivision and land development, stormwater, and numerous other approvals. As I indicated above, each person who speaks should state his or her name clearly so that the minutes can reflect who spoke at the hearing. After council either decides that the hour has come to conclude the public hearing or all persons have spoken, then council should adopt a motion to close the public hearing. After the hearing is closed, council has the right, but is not required to, take action on the proposed ordinance. This public hearing and consideration of the ordinance has been advertised so that if council desires to consider voting on the ordinance, it can do so tonight, or it can do so at any public meeting held within 60 days of the date of final publication of the legal advertisement, which was on June 30, 2026. Council also has the right to schedule additional public hearings or to re-advertise consideration of the ordinance if it does not act within that 60-day period and still desires to act. And that is the procedure that council must follow.
Thank you. At this time, we would invite Garmin to make some comments.
Yes, thank you and good evening. My name is Brandon Williams with Garmin Builders. I wanted to start the meeting tonight with a brief overview of the subject property and the prior discussions that have occurred with the borough over the past 3 years. We are seeking approval of several zoning text amendments from Borough Council to permit us to move forward with the conditional use process and PennDOT's traffic planning process, which would be the first 2 steps in the next stage of development. The borough will be integral in traffic planning discussions, and additional hearings will result with the conditional use process, where we intend to seek approval of the development's master plan. The development tract consists of approximately 60 acres and is zoned for traditional neighborhood development. The tract has been zoned for residential development since at least 2003. In 2025, the borough adopted revised traditional neighborhood development regulations to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. The property is located within the Lancaster County urban growth boundary, which is intended to direct growth to appropriate locations where infrastructure and planning objectives can effectively be supported. With consistent development goals between the borough and county for this tract, we have engaged in a multi-year collaborative process with borough staff to shape a plan that is compliant with allowable development densities and responsive to the existing community setting. In our concept planning and our draft text amendments, we have deliberately organized land uses to provide logical and appropriate transitions. We propose through the text amendments to maintain single-family homes adjacent to existing single-family neighborhoods, and multifamily homes will be kept adjacent to existing multifamily development. This approach is intentional and reflects a commitment to compatibility with surrounding land uses. The zoning text amendments before you are in large part practical in nature. Many are dimensional refinements or clarifications to improve the usability and the interpretation of the existing zoning requirements. The most notable request is to permit a portion of the multifamily units to be constructed as standalone buildings. We believe this adjustment advances the intent of the traditional neighborhood development by allowing for smaller scale structures and ultimately a less intense overall development pattern. It is important to recognize the broader implications of this approach. During the zoning review process in February of 2025, we presented a strictly by right plan featuring commercial uses on the first floor with apartments above. This would result in nearly double the amount of commercial space that's currently proposed in the concept plan in front of the council. That scenario would generate over 1,500 additional daily vehicle trips to this site, and additional parking fields would require removing at least 1 acre of open space. By contrast, this plan supported by the amendments represents a more balanced medium density outcome that reduces overall intensity and creates more open space that can be used to achieve stormwater mitigation and recreational opportunities for new residents. We acknowledge that traffic impacts will occur, as they would with any development of this scale. However, under this plan, those impacts are reduced and more manageable. In addition, this proposal will bring meaningful transportation improvements along the corridor, enhance pedestrian connections linking Route 999 and 741 westward into the borough, improved access to transit, and new recreational amenities for future residents. We believe the zoning text amendments align with the zoning history for this site, with the regional growth policy with regard to urban growth boundaries, and the TND objectives of the zoning ordinance. As such, we have received support from both the borough and county planning commissions for the zoning text amendments to be approved. For these reasons, we respectfully request the council approve the text amendments being reviewed tonight so we can continue the conditional use process and discussion on traffic improvements. My intention is to leave majority of the time for public comment. If the board has any questions on specific text amendments, I can clarify anything at your request throughout the night. But thank you for your time and consideration.
Brandon, I do have a concern here, as long as we're a good time before the public begins their comments. I think when you mentioned in your suggestions that you're going to improve access on 741, I mean, my concern, I lived here 50 years, my concern is the same as probably 98% of the people, it's traffic. And it seems like you could do better in getting 3 entrances and exits to the development. I've studied this map a long time. I'm thinking there are long straightaways on 741 going south. There's one going north. And there's the second one after the roundabout going south. That's another long straightaway. Could you suggest to PennDOT, who will make the final decision, that we have a ramp, an off-ramp for traffic coming into the development, going south, and a ramp for people to leave the development, again going south after the roundabout. And it seems like there's another long stretch going north. Seems to me like the more traffic you keep away from the rotary roundabout, whatever people want to call it, the better we are. And I think that's a suggestion you could make. And I guess in the end, if PennDOT rejects it, I think I'd like to know, is it because of traffic planning, or is it because you have to sacrifice a couple of units?
Yeah, I mean, we would have these discussions with PennDOT once we
Right.
get to the conditional use plan. So borough staff would be invited to those discussions that we can talk to.
Right. And I think the only thing I read was when your first suggestion in the document was, we're going to improve alleviate traffic, but there's no certain outlet to that. So I'm just providing a suggestion to PennDOT.
Yeah, I mean, right now, the improvements that we've identified and would be speaking with PennDOT is there would be synchronization of the traffic signals along that corridor.
Oh, yeah.
There would be an addition of a left-hand turn lane northbound on 999 onto 741.
Right.
We do have 3 entrances into the development as proposed. So all of those would be topics of discussion for certain with PennDOT.
Exactly, yes. Thanks.
I'd like to curtail any discussion about design. This is a public hearing. The intent is to hear comments from the public, specifically about the ordinance on our desk for us to vote on. So with that said, I'd like, do you have comments that are?
Well, I did have one question about the proposal itself. What is the minimum lot size of 2,000 square feet? Is 2,000 square feet the size that the standalone apartments are going to be on, or is that the size of each individual unit? The wording wasn't real clear, and I just wanted to make
Yeah,
it.
the lot size is determined by 2,000 square feet per apartment unit, I believe is how it's worded.
Okay, so how large will the actual apartments be in those buildings?
I would say anywhere between 1,200 and 1,400 square feet. We'd have to fine tune the floor plans.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
You were a little vague with your speech about the commercial, first floor commercial. What percentage of the buildings are you planning on having with that being commercial on the first floor? Versus,
I'm sorry.
yeah, just versus, or even a number of buildings with versus without?
Yeah, so 2 of the 6 apartment buildings will have commercial on the first floor.
2 of 6.
Jason Garman, I just wanted to come up because I think one of the big concerns was traffic counts, and then open space. And I just want to make sure, Brandon, I heard you say, it was hard to hear you say how much the traffic counts will be reduced by not putting first floor commercial underneath this. Do you have that number again, that we can be clear on how much we're reducing traffic by what we're asking for today?
So based on the traffic counts that we have taken for this development already, and then using the traffic engineering manual to model counts, it would be 1,500 additional or fewer trips with this plan that we're proposing now.
I just wanted to make sure that that was, because I know that was a big thing for the community, the traffic count.
I didn't get that. I'm sorry. Could you say it again and more clearly next to the same place so we all hear it? I'm sorry. Could not hear it even on the speaker.
Okay. The plan that we are proposing now, based on the traffic counts that we've taken for this project and based on the traffic engineering manual that we've modeled, it would be 1,500 fewer trips per day with the plan that we're proposing now.
Thank you very much. At this time, we'll open it up to public comment. I'm going to stop. Please wait, please wait. I'm going to ask that John Hershey from the Lancaster County Planning Commission kick off the public comment by sharing with us the perspective of the County Planning Commission. I also want to make some notes and reiterate some things Giselle said. We're sticking with a 5-minute timeline. We're not going to be answering questions. This is purely for getting your opinions into the public record on this issue. We may be voting tonight. We'd like to move this along if possible, and we want to make sure we hear from everyone, so please try to stay on topic, specifically addressing the ordinance, and we want to hear from everyone. So with that, I'll let John start, and then we can go from there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. I'm John Hershey, Deputy Director for the Lancaster County Planning Department, and as previously noted by at least two of the speakers, our department and the County Planning Commission reviewed the proposed amendments in May and found that they are consistent with Places 2040, the Lancaster County Comprehensive Plan, with Growing Together, the Lancaster Intermunicipal Committee Regional Plan, and with Millersville Borough's Comprehensive Plan prepared in 2023. Specifically, these plans, the proposed amendments encourage flexible development patterns, mixed uses, housing diversity, and increased neighborhood connectivity. The Lancaster County's comprehensive plan encourages us to develop a greater supply and diversity of housing types to both own and rent. It also encourages us to make it easier for residents and visitors to get around without a car, and to build more compactly and efficiently. Even though the proposed density in the current plan is a bit less than the previous plan, we still believe that by developing this site, which is within a designated growth area, both compactly and efficiently, we can relieve development pressure on areas outside of our designated growth boundaries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Phyllis Giberson. I live on Manor Avenue. I would like to begin with a few basic statements. The first one is that a seller has the right to do whatever they choose with their property. And if they choose to sell it to a developer, they can do that. Where we come in is we have, as a council and borough, a say in how that development is done. Now, we have a comprehensive plan that was completed in 2022 at a very high cost in dollars and time. For those of you who are not aware, a comprehensive plan is a guide for development of the community as well as conservation of features that are valuable to protect. A few things that are clearly stated in the Millersville Comprehensive Plan refer to protecting residential neighborhoods, managing traffic, being sure livability of residential areas are prioritized, and in a TND area are a mix of single detached homes, twin houses, townhouses, but not stand-alone apartments. Our comprehensive plan says apartments may be above commercial, but not standalone. Garmin is asking for approval of several amendments to our current TND ordinance. Now, for those of you that don't realize it, if Borough Council passes these text amendments, then they become part of the ordinance, and that is the law. And when they come back next spring and they have a plan, and the people around the borough say, we don't want standalone apartments, their comeback is going to be, oh, but Borough Council approved that when they approved the text amendments. So I think council needs to be very careful with which amendments you approve. And maybe there needs to be some changes. Some of these are not the text amendments, some of them are not as significant as the major concern for me, which is the 4 standalone apartment buildings with 96 units. This shows a blatant disregard for the residents of the borough and the work done on the comprehensive plan. According to Pennsylvania Borough Code, council does not have to vote on these amendments, because there are several, as a whole, but can vote on each one separately. And I checked this just today with the Pennsylvania Borough Association. Boroughs have the flexibility in structuring amendments. This way, you can vote on some yes and on some no, and avoid bundling unwanted changes together. So my particular thing is, I urge you to vote no on the apartment buildings.
Hi, my name is Susan Guggenheim. I live at 342 Manor Avenue in Millersville. And Madam President, I am asking council to table these text amendments and request revised language that removes freestanding apartment buildings or reject the ordinance as written. My reason is simple. The proposed standalone apartment language conflicts with the adopted and approved comprehensive plan 2023 for this specific route and tract. But the comprehensive plan says, but not apartment buildings, as Phyllis mentioned. The issue is not whether apartments exist elsewhere in Millersville or whether some areas have higher density. The issue is whether this TND ordinance should be changed to allow standalone apartment buildings when the comprehensive plan says the intent is single-family homes, twins, and townhouses, but not standalone apartment buildings, and only limited apartments above commercial use. Please uphold the approved comprehensive plan and table or reject the ordinance as drafted. And consider this a hand-delivered letter to council.
My name is David Haverstick. My wife and I live at 136 Oak Knoll Circle in the Oak Knoll neighborhood, which borders the proposed development. There is a common misconception that Oak Knoll is primarily a rental community, but in reality, 90% of our homes are owner-occupied. We are wondering, though, if this is a factor in the plan's placement of several of the tall standalone apartment buildings nearby us. We are not pleased to have standalone 45-foot tall apartment buildings overshadow our development, along with close by trash receptacles bordering our property. So we are respectfully requesting council to not approve the standalone apartment buildings proposed for this development. Please do not approve any proposed changes to the current code of ordinances associated with these standalone apartment buildings. Secondly, there's currently a tree line between Oak Knoll and the development property, which, according to a recent survey, straddles both properties. We would like to see the tree line retained as a modest home for birds, deer, rabbits, and other wildlife. We have various other concerns about this project, like traffic and impact on schools. All these need to be clearly studied, but thank you for your attention.
My name is Linda Belial. I live at 437 Penview Drive. I don't believe that the ordinance should be voted upon this evening without further consideration. My foremost concern is pedestrian safety. I'm addressing ordinance section 2.5. I believe that not enough attention has been given to this portion of the ordinance. It presently states a sidewalk shall not be required if the borough approves an acceptable alternative pathway system that serves the same connectivity purpose. It's my understanding that this amendment is pertaining to just the paths and sidewalks within the development, and that does not include Millersville Road, Route 741. There's nothing stated that allows pedestrians to cross 741 or safely walk down either side of 741. Also, competing developments are providing sidewalks and not cheapening the aesthetics, as I will mention later. One of the major goals of the comprehensive plan is to prioritize the livability of residential areas. The concept is to maintain an attractive and walkable historic small town character throughout Millersville with new development similar in scale to older development. The comprehensive plan states, seek that the new developments recreate the best features of older neighborhoods with pedestrian-friendly design. My position is that this new development must be accessible to walking traffic as well as vehicle traffic. This ordinance does not provide a safe way for pedestrians to access this development. How this new development is accessed by older, how is this development going to be easily accessed by older Millersville residents, disabled citizens, children and strollers, dogs and families? What is the draw to this new community? A sidewalk must be provided on one or the other side of 741, not an asphalt path. This allows walkability to the development. As the ordinance is presently written, there is no option for pedestrians to safely access 741. As presently shown and presented, the only way they can visit the development is at the corner of 741 and 999 through the asphalt path, and other than this corner, there's no other means of pedestrians accessing the development except at the proposed roundabout. The safety of pedestrians is not addressed with the newly written ordinance. I view the use of asphalt as a way to reduce Garmin's outlay, a cost savings measure to the detriment of pedestrians in Millersville. In order to sell units in this development, it must be accessible to walkers as well as vehicles. What is to attract individuals to this development? In staying with the comprehensive plan, what is there to attract walkers? How can they safely access the development of Oak Knoll, Sheets, sidewalks, PNC, sidewalks, remembering that walkability is a major item in the comprehensive plan? How do the residents in the pie-shaped area bordering the major development access commercial sites? Having pedestrians crossing the roundabout is really thought-provoking, with a route that is highly used by commercial trucks. Pennsylvanians don't want to wait in traffic. They take shortcuts to avoid long lights and traffic backup. I foresee them avoiding the corner of 741, 999, and the roundabout. These shortcuts will mean increased traffic down Wabank, through Quaker Hills, and through the other outlets in the development on Locust Point Lane. Put pedestrians in this mix, and there is only one winner. Why would people want to live in this new development. There's a similar development being phased in off Donnerville Road called Legacy Crossings. That development will be competing with this development. It includes 28 acres with walking trails and sidewalks, and it is in the Penn Manor School District. It is zoned high density with 429 residential units. We must offer something enticing to compete with. If people can't easily access or feel safe getting across 741, what draws them to this neighborhood? I sure don't want to see houses that can't be sold and are then forced to be rented. Thank you.
Good evening, Council. My name is RJ Breon. I'm a resident of this area and president of Teamsters Local Union Number 771, representing more than over 1,000 working families throughout Lancaster County. I want to be clear from the start, I am not opposed to growth, housing, or responsible development. What concerns me is changing zoning requirements to accommodate a project of this magnitude before the residents have confidence that our roads, infrastructures, emergency services, schools, and quality of life can support it. A development of approximately 350 units will have real impact on this community. It will increase traffic, place additional demands on public services, and affect the daily lives of people who already call Millersville home. And Madam Solicitor, I'm glad you mentioned the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code. Under that code, land use decisions are intended to promote the health, safety, and welfare of the community. Before approving significant zoning changes, I believe this council has an obligation to ensure those interests are being protected. As president of Teamster Local 771, I was elected to represent the people who put their trust in me. That means asking hard questions, demanding answers, and making sure the voices are heard when decisions are affecting their future. The residents who elected you should expect the same thing. They didn't elect you to rubber stamp proposals. They elected you to exercise independent judgment, scrutinize the facts, and make decisions that are in the best interests of the community. The people of Millersville deserve clear answers regarding traffic impacts, emergency response times, stormwater management, infrastructure capacity, and long-term costs that may ultimately fall on the taxpayers. This decision is also about precedents. Once zoning is changed, it is very difficult to reverse course. Future residents and future councils will be living with the consequences of what is decided here. I represent working families for a living, and one thing that I have learned from the people who live, one thing I have learned is that the people who live with the consequences of a decision are rarely the people sitting at the negotiating table. They are the families trying to get to work on time, the residents sitting in traffic, the taxpayers paying the bills, and the people whose quality of life is affected every single day. When you cast your vote on this matter, I would simply ask that you remember who sent you here and who will be living with the consequences of your decision long after tonight. And one question that I would ask all of council before you vote is, am I voting for the residents or am I voting for the developer? And one final point I want to make very clear is, when I bargain a collective bargaining agreement for the members that I represent, I don't push it through. The members push it through a democratic ratification vote. Thank you.
Good evening, Council. My name is Danny Owens, and I think that I have a somewhat unique perspective on what this development could mean for Millersville. My wife was born and raised here in Millersville. My grandpa grew up in Easton, where he enlisted in the Army during World War II, and later raised my dad in Reading. We met in Philadelphia, me and my wife, and over the years, she brought me back to Millersville countless times. Every visit made me appreciate the community a little bit more. I fell in love with the open farmland, the quiet roads, the sense of community, and the feeling that this place was different. I'm not originally from here, to be honest. I spent most of my life living in larger cities. Most recently, I moved here from Los Angeles. Shortly after welcoming our first daughter, we moved here, and now with another child on the way, we made a decision to stay. We didn't leave large cities because we wanted a newer house or a larger development. We left because we wanted a better quality of life. The same quality of life that my wife grew up with here until she left in her 20s. We intentionally chose Millersville because of what it already was, not because of what it could become. We wanted to become part of an existing community that has been together for generations, not another housing development contributing to the very problems that we were trying to escape. Because of that, we bought a 1950s home on Blue Rock Road that needed some work and some love, not a copy and paste new development. We wanted to wake up to the sound of birds and not that of congestion. We wanted to grow tomatoes in our backyard and not look at another swath of gray and brown buildings surrounding us. I've seen firsthand what happens when growth isn't balanced with preservation. Traffic increases, open space disappears, farms become parking lots, small towns lose the character that made people want to live there in the first place. Once that happens, you simply can't reverse it. I know growth is sometimes necessary, but I would ask the council to remember what makes Millersville special. This community is known for its farmland, its open spaces, and the breathing room it offers to families, new and old. Those aren't renewable resources. Once they're paved over, they're gone forever. You don't get the naturalness or openness of the area back. You have been entrusted with protecting the character of this region for future generations, just as you enjoyed it during your time here as well. I hope you'll choose to preserve what makes Millersville worth calling home and not giving in to developers whose only incentive is lining their pockets, not making your lives better, and not making ours, and in fact, moving on to the next development as soon as they're done here. Thank you.
My name is Bill Boyd. I'm a former Millersville councilman, a retired real estate investor and developer. I'm also a volunteer disaster relief construction crew member with international relief teams and Mennonite disaster services. So hopefully my experiences carry some gravitas with respect to my comments tonight. We all know there's a lot of development happening in our area. Funk's Farm Market, possibly the Whitmer Farm behind Eshelman Elementary, the Armstrong Track off Charlestown Road and 741, and this development, just to name a few close by. A few miles further away, it's easy to see farms being developed in Willow Street, Lampeter, along Marietta Avenue, West Hempfield Township. Everywhere I drive, I see developments. Do I need to list many more? Because I can. We're destroying our farmland at an alarming rate. Maybe I should repeat that because that's the important part. We really are destroying our farmland. Many of you can remember driving north on 222, looking west just north of the Ephrata exit and seeing beautiful farmlands. They're all gone now. It's all houses. That's our future here. When the local land is gone, where will the food come from? The sweetest corn was at Funk's. Actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. Where will the food come from? What quality will it be? There's nothing as good as Funk's Purple Delight corn. So sweet, it could only be purchased for 2 weeks until the crows found it. Where will we get Washington Borough tomatoes of the same quality? Will Cherry Hill orchards once again be targeted to developers? Will sweet, firm Honeycrisp apples and the juiciest peaches become a memory? Because they will be if we lose our farmlands. Now is the time to save our farms. Now is the time to stop the sprawl gobbling up our lands. If we're going to build on our farms, and I'm sure a lot of people will take issue with this, then build high rises. Don't build on land suitable for farming and that would produce high quality crops. Change the zoning. The zoning requirements should address this. Don't use the excuse that there aren't appropriate fire trucks to handle high-rise emergencies. The developers will figure out how to cover that expense just as they do with road improvements.
Developers are required to do stormwater management to assure runoff water doesn't impact surrounding properties. Require developers to do traffic management to assure there is zero impact on surrounding roads. Car-free villages are not unheard of in other places. I can go to Philadelphia and find car-free streets. Require developers to assure there's no reduction of water and water pressure from our potable water supply. Require that there be no impact on our electrical grid, and that's already struggling to keep pace with our demand. Don't be satisfied with just stormwater management. We don't need our resources depleted any more than they have been. Don't wait until there's a crisis to change the regulations, because there will surely be a crisis. I've witnessed this in many disaster sites that I've volunteered at. It's said if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. You owe nothing to the developers, but you owe it to your constituents to plan wisely so we can survive and maintain a decent quality of life. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
Hello, my name is Jacqueline Shaw, and I live at 165 Oak Knoll Circle. I respectfully oppose the proposed zoning changes that would allow freestanding apartment buildings. Zoning ordinances are adopted to protect the long-term character of our community and should not be changed simply to accommodate a single development proposal. I'm also concerned about the additional traffic and safety impacts, and before any zoning changes are approved, I ask the council be certain our roads and infrastructure can safely support this growth. I encourage the council to preserve the current zoning standards and make decisions that protect Millersville's character, safety, and quality of life for current and future residents. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Hey, good evening. I'm Dan Ostrowski. I live at 413 Spring Drive. Full disclosure, I am a member of the Planning Commission. I joined earlier this year, and this project was one of the driving factors that motivated me to join. And I am going to say, based on the applause tonight, I'm going to have a minority opinion, but I think it's important that the minority opinions are heard. Yeah, we've heard a lot of conversation about the impact of quality of life and comments about, it's really only the builder that's going to benefit from this. But what I'd like to do is represent somebody who's not represented here. That's the people in this county or in this state that need better housing than they have now. I do think that, and a simple understanding of economics tells us that and if you know anybody that's tried to look for housing lately in Lancaster, it's difficult. It's difficult to find housing, and it's difficult to avoid housing. A simple understanding, a basic understanding of economics tells us that the best way to combat shortages and high prices is to increase supply. So I do think that high-density housing, including the standalone apartment units, is an excellent way to increase supply. We've heard some concerns about the use of farmland. That property is going to get developed one way or another at some point, and it is a landlocked farm, and while I don't like to see more farmland get plowed under, you don't have to look at maps too far back in history to show that probably where all of us live was farmland or wooded land where animals live. Our houses are there now, so the things that we are concerned about and using as objections are things that at one time we benefited from. I would strongly encourage council to adopt this so that others who need housing and who need more affordable housing can benefit. Benefit from the same.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Chad Martin. I live in Lancaster Township, just a couple miles from the site that we're talking about tonight. And I drive on 741 on a weekly basis, multiple times a week. I also shop in that community. My day job is with Chestnut Housing, so I spend every day thinking about affordable housing and the challenges that the last speaker just spoke about. I also currently co-chair the Coalition for Sustainable Housing, a local initiative advocating for more housing solutions in Lancaster County. Tonight, I simply want to remind Borough Council members and the audience gathered here that we're in the midst of the most acute and persistent housing crisis our community has ever faced. Over the last 5 years, Lancaster County has had an average rental vacancy rate of 3%. Last year, it was 2%. That's the lowest average vacancy rate over that 5-year time of over 390 metro areas across the country. In other words, we essentially have had the lowest number of available apartments in our community of anywhere in the country. That means, in a supply and demand kind of situation, that means that 42% of renters in our community cannot really afford where they live. Thousands of school-age students across Lancaster County experience homelessness every year. And costs are being driven up by a shortage in housing supply that requires thousands of new homes to be built just to meet current demand. That means we all share a moral obligation to support adding housing options in the communities where we live that serve a variety of household needs and a variety of income levels. I want to further remind the audience that the decision council members have in front of them tonight are not details of a particular development or the traffic challenges it will cause, but the text amendments that will allow the opportunity for more flexible and practical solutions on this site. As has been already stated a number of times, the site is within the county's designated urban growth boundaries, which is intentionally designed to foster growth in our community and allow for more families and individuals to make their home in Lancaster County while preserving farmland where we're able to. As has already been stated, Lancaster County Planning supports these text amendments. They fit with the county's comprehensive plan, the regional comprehensive plan, and the borough's comprehensive plan. This area will become housing someday. The question for you all is simply how much housing can be built there in a way that is practical to meet needs in this community and across our community. So because this development calls for hundreds of new homes that will serve a variety of household sizes and income levels, including in particular the multifamily housing that's being described in separate buildings, regardless of whether they're separate buildings or over commercial, that multifamily housing is some of the most important housing our community needs. So because this development includes all of that and strives for the highest density possible while preserving the character of the neighborhood and fitting in with development that has already taken place around it, I wholeheartedly support these changes to the text amendment as proposed and the opportunity to bring more housing to our community. Thanks for your time tonight.
My name is Keith White. I live on Manor View Drive. I own 3 companies on the New York Stock Exchange to make money that do nothing more than invest in apartment buildings around the United States. That's all they do. They're gobbling up condos, townhouses, apartment complexes around the United States so people like me who want to invest in them can make money. I do it because I make money, but I'm in conflict daily about it. The American dream is to own a home. The American dream is not to have an apartment. We can do stuff with that land that maybe adds to our housing issues, but apartments is not the answer. Maybe a townhouse and condos compromising here to get something accomplished with our housing problems in Lancaster. But surely apartment complexes, eventually they will sell to a conglomerate and allow me to make more money on the New York Stock Exchange. It's a total conflict within the United States if we're going to keep doing this to our population. The American dream is to own a home. You have the ability to use that land to provide homes, not apartments.
Hi, I'm Sean Scott, and I live at Oak Knoll Circle near here. Before, I also lived at Bean Road, and I've had to go on 741 to get to Route 30 to various things that I go to, church, shopping, other things. And it seems like there's a terrible traffic problem now. And you're talking about building all these houses and other things there, and you know, I like the ideas of things like more of like a park or some other things like that, but just with more traffic, it just seems to me to be a big problem. It's a problem now. People have to go out of their way to avoid 741 and to get to 30, and that's a big thing, is how are you going to get there? How are you going to do this? I think you can do many good things with the land, or, you know, keep it like it is, but, you know, are you going to just blow out every open space and fill it up with something? It doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem to me good for right here, because we've got to get to, everybody's got to get north some way, sooner or later, to 30 if you're going to go north. So that's my thing.
My name is Carol Thomas, and I'm a resident. Oh, better? Yes. Okay. Now, I'm not the best speaker, but I'm passionate about where I live and the people who are here, my neighbors and my friends. So, besides traffic, which I knew would be talked about, and the overdevelopment of our farmlands, I want to know about the effect on the environment. The air quality, which we find is the worst, the 5th worst in the United States. And that's due to building, construction, automobiles, cutting down trees, clearing green spaces. So this is just one more example of adding to that problem for the people who live here. There's at least 7 developments within a 10-mile area of here. It's all adding to reducing the quality of life. And this would be another one. I'm suggesting that not only do you not pass this amendment for these high-rise, but you completely change what you will do with that land. Now, we're told how we should take care of the environment, but actions speak louder than words, and I'm seeing actions. There are other uses for these open areas that can benefit society and this area. And my suggestions, whatever, teaching vets and others how to begin farming. They're doing it out in the Midwest, and they're giving these people a purpose. And young people learning how to farm. An extension of the Home Fields program. I think that's an excellent program. A group home for children or disabled vets where they can participate in the society and have a home base. Or maybe a beautiful wildlife area. What we do now not only affects us in the present, but with the future generations. Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay, I'm David Sykes. I live at 344 Valley Road. Most of you know I have Parkinson's, so excuse the shaking. Just a couple of quick things. I can't tell from the drawings how many parking spaces are allowing for each apartment, but I firmly believe that each apartment must have at least 2 off-street parking spaces, and that the roads should be wide enough for at least one side of a street to have one street parking, because most houses will have at least 2, if not 3 vehicles, especially if college students buy up these places. The development I live in has concrete sidewalks in front of all the residences. It really, really makes a big difference when you could sit out on your porch and have people walking. You'd be amazed how many people walk in the Penview development, and they walk down the sidewalks and they stop and talk to people that are sitting out on their sidewalks, which really adds a better, air of community or together. I also would like to suggest possibly adding another entrance off of Millersville Pike. That section of apartments that's up there, possibly putting a Y in there onto Millersville Pike, with the top right of the Y being for right-hand turns only, and the left of the Y being for right-hand turns into the only. That would help take some of the traffic off of the traffic circle and coming in the other side, because people would be able to come in there, and I believe the land is useful for it. I did say something about the concrete sidewalks. You really need to consider that a lot of this housing is going to be young families with children, or seniors, or handicapped, and you really need those concrete sidewalks. I think there should be concrete sidewalks in front of every residential building. Having macadam sidewalks through the parkland, or whatever you want to call it here, I'm fine with. But it really adds to the atmosphere of the community if you have concrete sidewalks. I'm against the high-rise apartments. I'm not sure how much leeway council has to say you can't do that, because if the zoning, if the county commission recommends that they're allowed to do that, I'm not sure if we can say, no, we don't want it. Okay, I think that's, also, it would help to have fairly wide road widths. These roads look pretty narrow to me, and you're going to have a lot of cars going up and down, and likewise, you're going to have kids trying to come out of their driveways and play. I don't know. Ideally, 30 feet wide would be nice. I realize that might be not reasonable, but keep in mind, you're going to have kids and stuff. These are going to be, in many cases, these are going to be transitional houses, and you're going to have young families with little kids, and you have got so many houses here, you're going to have a lot of traffic. I think I'll probably think something else. Thank you.
I'm going to be so quick. My name's Jennifer Quigley. So you are publicly elected. So I just want to ask show of hands, or could you show of hands or stand of how many people are for apartment buildings? So we got, okay. And how many people are against it? Okay. And this is who these people elected you, right? Okay. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to comment?
Okay. I don't have anything prepared, so
that someone prepared it for me. Madam President, I'm asking council to take table these text amendments and request the revised language that removes freestanding apartment buildings or reject the ordinance as written. I'm going to submit this to you. My piece, in addition to this, is the concern about Millersville Borough itself. My concern is that we have an antiquated septic removal system. It is unlawful. We are illegal. We do not separate gray from black water. So when a developer goes to do his job, he's going to hook it into our system, and we are penalized. We pay for that fee that goes on to dumping that into the river, which is a lot. You can see the dead fish, you can see the scum, and you can see the poop. So guess what? We have 3 big units of developments going up, and we didn't decide to take care of what was really important, of how to do the basic thing of getting rid of the black water and gray water correctly. It's going to cost a lot of money. We need to suck it up and do that first if anything else is going to be plugged in. Thank you.
Tom's Rock. I live in Quaker Hills on Green Hills Drive. A lot of the things said tonight seem to represent really the majority here, I think, as far as against the apartments. So pardon me, I'm a little nervous. I didn't know if I'd be up here or not. But that being said, you know, we need to stick with what we did before, the comprehensive plan. And on top of that, I guess the impact on Quaker Hills, whenever there's an accident on 741 or 999, our development is inundated with cars cutting through there. We have no sidewalks. We have children, elderly, people walking for their health, walking dogs, you name it, it's in the neighborhood. There's no sidewalks. There's multiple cars parked on both sides of the streets. It narrows it even more. Everybody that drives through Quaker Hills knows that at times you can't even pass 2 cars next to each other without one zigging and one zagging because of the multiple cars that are already on the streets. So there's only 2 entrances being proposed and exits, if I read the plan correctly. But I also noticed there's 4 dead ends that were going into that area that have been blocked off, a couple of them, except for Locust Point. So, you know, there's other access points that could be addressed in this planning. But bottom line is, you know, and then who's going to pay for the sidewalks that we'll need possibly to keep our safety? You know, is that the developer going to take that into account? Once they build their development, that's fine. You got sidewalks or trails or whatever, but our development's not going to have it. Then you're going to come back on us and say, well, we got the traffic. Now you've got to pay for sidewalks or, you know, however that all works. But the services and everything, fire, medical, police. So with all that being said, I'm against the apartments being built freestanding, you know, above commercial. It's already in there. But, you know, there's a lot of things that are going to be impacted. It's pretty much resigned to the fact that it's up for development. And I didn't join a planning commission to make impact that way. I should have, maybe most of us are guilty of that. We're only now speaking up after we're seeing what's going on, but it's always been kicked down the can. I know the previous owner of that property. I talked to the gentleman several times before his passing. So I'm sure he wasn't envisioning any of this, but okay, enough said. So I'll thank you for your time.
Could the last woman who spoke, could you give us your name for the record? I want to make sure that we have your name for the record. No, not you, the person who spoke before you. Yes. Just want to make sure that we have it.
My name is Patty Kettering.
Thank you.
Do you need to know where I live?
That's helpful, but
123 Springdale Lane.
thank you. Do we have anyone else who wants to enter their comments into the record?
Name is John Lichty. I'd like to express my concern that there be no apartments. Basically, with apartment, you have a tenant and a landlord relationship. So you have two parties of special interest in that same property. And the result of that leads to a dilution of the equity and the value of the property, and further maintenance of that property can fall to demise depending upon the ownership and how it's managed, and what is the benefit to the tenant falls to the landlord, and in turn for that, they usually are not serviced as well. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hello, my name's Rob Kaufman. I live in Locust Point Lane, the one that has the entrance coming out of the apartments. My biggest concern is, like the previous gentleman expressed, is all the traffic going to be flowing into that neighborhood. It's a lot of people, and when we have accidents, it is hard to get in and out of our neighborhood. You're looking at adding a thoroughway that everybody's going to avoid 741 and 999. I'm asking that when they do the plans, please try to find a way to keep them out of our neighborhood, because we don't have sidewalks and we don't have a way to keep our kids, from going down the street to their neighbors or whatever, and keep them off the road. We also have a lot of people who walk in our neighborhood for health. There are also, a lot of them are elderly. They walk dogs. If you could just try to help keep our neighborhood a little bit safer. I'm not asking, I know the development's going to go in. I'm just asking for a little bit of courtesy for the development that's already there. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Laura Maloney. I'm at 1917 Locust Point Lane. So basically, the entry to the development, which I understand will go in one way or another, goes right past my house. And same as Rob, the concern for me is we're going to make a bunch of new people happy in their new neighborhood, but how are we going to take care of the neighborhood that we live in so that we can continue to live safely there? I'm concerned too about during the period of construction and where those trucks are going to be entering and exiting the development, because if it's going right past my front window and right past Rob's front window, we're just going to hate it. I mean, I don't know what else to say, it's like, is my property value going to drop? Is it, how is it going to affect me besides the fact that I love having a field next to me? I understand the necessity to add more homes. I just want to know that the home that I live in and the neighborhood that I live in will be preserved. So that's all I got.
Thank you.
Good evening, Riley Notzel with Barley Snyder. Once the public comment is finished, I didn't know if there'd be an opportunity for the developer to just respond to some of the commentary that we received.
Right.
That is up to council.
It was my intention to allow the developer to address some of the questions and comments that have been raised.
Yeah, so unless there's anyone else, we'd like to just address a few of the comments.
I think there might be a few more people.
Sure.
My name is Brett Goodman. I live at 60 Glen Oaks Drive in Quaker Hills. And I would just like to state I'm against the apartments. I don't have a problem with the single-family homes, duplexes. The amount of traffic in our neighborhood, when anything happens, we are a shortcut. And within the last 5 years, we have so many young families and their young children in our streets. There's no sidewalks, and I don't want to pay for sidewalks. The streets are big enough, wide enough for cars on both sides, but when something happens in that area, it's a shortcut right now without anything added. So I would just like them to take that into consideration. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jim Doherty. I am not a borough resident, but I do live right on Millersville Pike, right up the road from the project. I'm going to voice an opinion of support for the project. I think it's a good mixed-use project. I know you will. I live right on Millersville Pike. Thank you. I think it's a good mixed-use project. I would encourage you to consider the current traffic situation at 999 and 741, as you will, and make things better overall. But rather than bury our heads in the sand, I think this is a good opportunity for a good project. Garmin is a good local builder, and I would encourage you to incorporate, as others have, sidewalks and walking paths into this property to make the overall area there a better place, better neighborhood from a broader perspective. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Engel, and I live at 130 Village Drive in Winfield at Millersville. It's a Garmin development. I will say I'm very happy with my home, but I also want to say that Millersville has plenty of apartments. We have so many buildings, and I have been to previous council meetings where our borough staff talk about the hundreds and hundreds of inspections that they must do on rental properties. Millersville has plenty. The development that they are planning looks attractive, but how attractive can a four-story apartment building look along 999, let alone several of them? And between 1,400 and 1,500 square feet is the size of one of the duplexes in our Winfield development now. I do not think that they are going to be affordable housing for anyone, and that multiple people will have to go together to rent those properties. I also want to say that the Winfield development is a private community. We have an HOA, and our roads are private. We have signs at both entrances that the roads are for residents only. I can't tell you how many cars come through our development because they're trying to avoid the intersection at Duke Street in Millersville. And with the Funk's development coming in, I'm sure more people will be cutting through our development. And we do have sidewalks, and we still worry about it. And the development is still going on in Winfield, and it is not pleasant. I understand development comes with problems, but it's not a pleasant experience to live near there. So everyone in the surrounding communities will be affected for the next, I would say, however many years it takes them We haven't been able to use our patio for the year and a half we've lived there. So there are a lot of things to consider about allowing more apartment buildings, especially freestanding. And I know you all want to increase our tax base. I know that's important, but it is not worthwhile. An apartment owner or people who rent apartments aren't paying taxes anyway. So why not build more homes? Thank you.
If no one else wants to make a comment, I will allow Garmin to, oh, coming in.
Hi, my name's Holly Clark. I'm in Quaker Hills Development, Fresh Meadow Drive. So of course the land is my backyard. That was part of the reason that we moved there 25 years ago. So of course I'm against developing at all, but I do understand the need for housing and growth. I would prefer to actually only have single-family homes, only because Quaker Hills Development is that exact same way. They're all single-family homes. As far as the apartment buildings, I would be against that in the sense that I believe it's Miller's Crossing that they just put in 50 units right at the end of Comet Field. I know that's Lancaster Township, but there's 50 units, and people say that apartments are more affordable, but they're not, because they're starting at $1,800 to $2,400 for 1 to 2 bedroom apartments. And that is on 741, right beside Comet Field. I think they're getting all these high-end quality, trying to make the apartments more modern and just expensive. A 23-year-old daughter, she wants to move out, she can't. So I don't think that the apartments are the answer. I would love to see these builders actually building homes that are more affordable for young people to purchase their first home. They don't all need, top-end, high-end finishes. I realize that the townhomes are, less expensive than a single-family home, but these new developments, I have a son that's 29, he's looking to buy his first home. The new homes, $500,000, $600,000. I mean, there's plenty of older homes that are on the market. Maybe they don't have high-end finishes, but, we're all living, we're all going to die. There's going to be more homes available. They keep building on all of our farmland, saying that there's not going to be enough housing. But fact is, there's homes going up for auction daily, constantly. Unfortunately, that's life. I mean, there's a lot of homes that are available. The new homes aren't affordable to our young people. People coming out of college can't afford to even get into an apartment because of being so expensive. I don't think that having an apartment building right here on 741 is going to look like our area either. They're going to have a huge parking lot to place the apartment building on. My thought is, why don't you allow more green space? Why do they have to build anything in that particular area? If they don't want any more commercial buildings, why do you have to put apartment buildings there? Add more green space. What's the harm in that? If they want to preserve the land, then preserve it the best to their ability and allow the families to have green space. When I looked at the plans, the green space that they have proposed, there's drainage ditches in every single green space. I'm not understanding how that's going to be, for kids to play in and stuff, to have areas of grass. Just just to go outside and play and be safe. And as far as the height, I don't think many people talked about the height. Obviously, we don't want it to look like we're in New York City. We live here for a reason. We wanted to live in New York City, we would. We don't want the high buildings. I have a sunset view from my back porch, and that's gonna be completely ruined. I won't be able to see it at all. And it might not mean much to some people, but it means something to all of us. I know I have Quaker Hills people here, and that is our backyard and has been for many years. So I ask that you don't change and allow for the apartment buildings or the height requirement that they're asking for. Thank you for your time.
Do you want to allow people to speak again? We're not allowing folks to speak more than once, based on what Giselle said.
Well, you can if you want to after everyone, right? You can if you want.
Well, you can, there is no requirement to allow people to speak more than once. If you want to allow someone to speak more than once after everyone else has spoken, that's your choice.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
For the first time.
I thought he was coming up.
I'm Patty Kettering, and there's one more thing that I was like, oh darn, I forgot to mention this.
I want to make sure that everyone gets to speak at least once first. I thought someone else stood up. Nope. You can wait in the wings.
Hi, Rebecca Musselman, 210 Blue Rock Road. I just worry mostly about the schools, and we all got our school taxes, and we know they went up. We're looking to see, are they getting lower, the more people we get in this area? And also, I live right on 999. I cannot get out of my driveway as it is the only way a lot of people get to Duke Street to head down to the southern end. Impossible to get out of my driveway. My in-laws built that home. My husband's been Penn Manor his whole life and his family. I'm new to this area. I've only lived here 47 years, so I'm kind of new. But I work at the cancer center at the health campus. I should not take 45 minutes to get home from work. You have stressful days as it is, and waiting in traffic for at least 45 minutes on certain days should not make my day any worse. So my thing is, if you put wider highways in here, I'm gonna lose my home because it's gonna take over my property, and 999 already took over some of their property, and I don't want any more of my property gone, and I don't want any more of my taxes going any higher, or I won't be able to afford to live in this area. That's all I got.
Nobody.
Come on up.
Nobody addressed this, so I just wanted to throw it in there because I'm amazed nobody else addressed this. I don't care whether you're white, black, yellow, Indian. It doesn't matter what you are. This has nothing to do with what you are, what religion you are, or anything. I was a police officer for several years, so I know what I'm talking about. The higher the density of people you have, the more crime and police cars you're going to have. I wouldn't be surprised if the chief has to hire an officer that's going to stay just in that area to handle police calls and fender benders. Thank you.
My name is Darrell Bodner, live at 143 Ridge Road in Millersville, obviously. I'm a little concerned with the idea of the apartment buildings, and I'd like to make sure that if this goes through, there is some contingency that they can't add on later take some of the green spaces they were talking about and add more apartment buildings. So you're limiting what they can do forever on that property. So it doesn't go from 4 buildings, but look, we have more space. Let's take away the park part and put another building in there, and maybe another building. I'd like to see it limited, that is in perpetuity. Garmin and Barley Snyder are obviously in businesses of lending and making money. They're not really interested in how we feel or what we want. They're interested in making money. So I would like to see, if it goes through, and I'm against it going through, if it goes through, I'd like to see it limited, that they can't add on later and change it if you change the wording. Thank you.
My name is Patty Kettering. I'm here again. I didn't get to say I'm opposed to the apartments being so high. I am definitely opposed to that. I'm also opposed to having so many of these developments going up because of the water. We don't already, does anybody notice that the water came back, like you can't drink it out of your own spigot? It is poisonous. It's not safe. And we need to get things together, and you're bringing in other people, and already we're going to start killing them already. It's not okay to do that. I don't care how many you want to have in there. I am for the sidewalks if you're going to go ahead and do it. I believe that's an absolutely great way. I am not sure we have the best ideas of the traffic movement. There's too many of these things going on. I can't believe you guys actually approved of all this at one time. And if you didn't and you inherited it, it's really sad you couldn't change it. I hope you can do it now by nixing these amendments right now and rewording it to be more in alignment to our current situation of antiquated septic system, unclean water, terrible traffic, and the safety. So those are, thank you.
Keith White, Manor View Drive. For the solicitor, is anything you guys approve now have any bearing on the development back at Eshelman with Vista Block? My legal question is anything that you approve have any legal bearing for the Vista Block development back by Eshelman School at the 2 farms? And if it does, the solicitor can surely answer that question. You guys legally, I think you need to be aware of that, because that definitely has a bearing on what you do here. It's not just this development, it's also that development, which is bigger.
That development is outside the borough, so no. Anyone else have any new comments to add? Okay, excellent. Thank you. I'm glad everyone was able to share. Garvin can wrap it up and address some of your questions before we close out the hearing.
You want to come up too? Thank you for the opportunity to present. To answer that question, we're the petitioner, so we just would like the opportunity to explain some of your concerns that you raised this evening. There were only 2 or 3 actual pertinent comments about the ordinance itself that I want to address. The first is sidewalks. As Mr. Williams mentioned, we did have almost 2 years of discussions with council and the Planning Commission explaining why we were proposing the change to the ordinance dealing with sidewalks. Mainly it has to do with safety along the major roadways, and we received unanimous support from Planning Commission and council at the time when we discussed those revisions. Additionally, I know there are some former council members in the audience. I'm surprised that it wasn't brought up, but these plans were in front of some of the folks speaking out this evening who all supported the plans at the time, and that's how we got to this point. We advanced through numerous discussions with the Planning Commission, council members, received support of the concept plans that we presented, and really tried to make it a collaborative process. One of the comments about the standalone apartments stood out to me, particularly because we presented what we would term a by right plan that involved apartments above commercial entirely, and the feedback that we received from council and the Planning Commission, including council members, former council members in the audience, is that they preferred the plan that was presented with these changes that you're viewing tonight. So the reason we got to this point was because we received consistent feedback from council and the Planning Commission on the plan that's before you this evening. And then in addition, the height comment, the ordinance already allows 3 stories. So some of these changes that we're proposing just deal with design more than anything else. We're trying to make a community that looks nice, attractive, has comprehensive design standards and architectural guidelines. I don't know, Mr. Garman, if you have anything you'd like to add.
I think the biggest thing that I wanted to add, it's not whether or not this project's going to get developed and how it's zoned. It's going to get developed, and there's going to be apartments. If we go back to the by right plan, I think we end up with 10% more apartments than what's currently there. However, it makes a much harder plan, and when I say harder, it means there's less green space available. It doesn't feel as livable to myself and what we do at Garmin Builders, because you end up with a lot more commercial space. And you probably end up with commercial space that isn't as desirable, therefore it ends up being a low rent district commercial space. And I think I've been to those, and that's not what I would want in my backyard. So the plan that we're presenting has some nice walkabilities with the opportunity of brew pubs, fitness center, and some things that are great for the community. And we're not over producing commercial space, which could increase traffic flows by over 1,000 trips a day. So I think what we're asking for tonight is to actually meet what I'm hearing a lot of from the residents today, is we don't want as much, and how do we get sulfur, and how do we get less? We're doing that by asking for some of these adjustments to the plan. We're going to have less traffic, we're going to have less residents that would live there, and then we end up with, you know, I'm proud of the plan because we do end up with 20 acres of open space in the way it lays out. So I think it's a really great job and a lot of work that people have done to get it to this point. I do think Millersville is a great community. We want to be a part of making it even better, and so thank you.
Yeah, and one other comment that I just wanted to add too. So when we started this process, the feedback that we got on the comprehensive plan was that these TND tracks were really zoned that way to encourage collaboration by future developers. The requirements in them are very specific. So I think when the TND ordinance was adopted, it was with the intent and understanding that people would potentially be coming back with further amendments to reflect the design that they were proposing and work with the Borough Council and the Planning Commission to get to a point similar to the process that we're going through. And I would also say that there's precedent. I know that there's another TND tract along Cottage Avenue. The borough recently amended its comprehensive plan to allow solar on that site. So there is precedent to amending a recently adopted comprehensive plan.
All right, we'll close the hearing, and then we vote to close the hearing. All right.
I'm Alex Peel with RGS Associates. We are the site designers for the project. One thing I just wanted to note, because I heard several folks in the audience that were unclear about a statement about there being 1,500 less trips with this development. What that is in reference to is that the current ordinance, what can be developed right now, would produce 1,500 more trips than what is being proposed by this amendment to the ordinance. So obviously traffic is a big concern. What's currently in the ordinance would produce 1,500 more trips than what's being proposed in the amendment. Thank you.
All right. May I say something? No, we're done. I would be looking for a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
a second?
Second.
All in favor of adjourning the hearing? Signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. I would like council now to potentially make a motion, followed by discussion of approval or not of this ordinance.
Yeah, we want to wait for this to... Yeah, that's not us.
Oh. If you're going to leave, please do so expeditiously so we can continue with the proceedings. Yeah.
Sir?
It's actually shorter than I expected.
Yeah.
Entertaining.
Everyone could quiet down. We do want to continue so we can wrap things up for you. As I mentioned, now is the time council will make a motion and discuss the amendment. Does anyone want to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to amend the ordinance, or to amend the Millersville Borough Code of Ordinances, Chapter 380 zoning, to modify certain specific criteria and area and bulk requirements for traditional neighborhood development as outlined in the document provided. Do I have a second?
I'll second. Thank you, Angela. All right, discussion, question? Go ahead. Yep,
So,
sure.
You know, I want to thank everyone who's participated in this process, whether you support the amendments or oppose them. I appreciate that everyone cares deeply about the community as I do. As I've listened to the discussion, I've come back to one point again and again, that this property is going to get developed. So the question before us is not whether the development happens. The real question is, what kind of development do we want? And for me, the answer starts with the comprehensive plan, like so many folks talked about. We developed that plan with input from the community. It's intended to guide decisions. The plan calls for pedestrian-friendly neighborhoods, neighborhoods serving businesses, a mix of housing types, development patterns that resemble traditional communities that make this area special. This parcel was specifically identified as a place for a traditional neighborhood development where we could achieve those goals. So when residents participated in the community survey that was part of the comprehensive plan, they told us they wanted more opportunities for walking, more trails, more parks, more open space, more restaurants, more neighborhood scale retail, a variety of housing choices, including apartments. That's what a TND is intended to provide. So what I like about this approach is that it doesn't simply just add houses. It's not suburban sprawl. It creates a neighborhood. And it creates opportunities for young adults like my young adults who want to stay in the community. It gives options for seniors who want to age in place and downsize, maybe into an apartment, so they can remain close to friends and family. It creates housing choices. It creates what is called missing middle housing. And we know, as we heard, people are increasingly finding it difficult to afford a home in the communities where they live. So I've heard the concerns about the apartments. I understand those concerns, but I also believe it's important that we separate fact from assumptions. So the proposed apartments are just one piece of this much larger neighborhood. That does include homes and townhomes and open space and trails and commercial services. And I'm a researcher. Research does not show a consistent connection between well-designed apartments and declining property values. It shows that multifamily housing often generates fewer school-aged children, so we have less of a concern for schools that way. There's no evidence of a causal relationship between properly planned multifamily housing and increased crime rates. And so the alternative is not no development. It is, excuse me, this is my time. The alternative isn't no development. This parcel will get developed. I also think this is fiscally responsible for us, this traditional neighborhood development. It makes more efficient use of infrastructure, requires less roadways and utility infrastructure, creates a stronger tax base over the long term. So when I weigh the alternatives before us, I believe this approach does give us more control, more open space, better design, more housing choice, and a neighborhood pattern that reflects the best traditions of our community. So I don't think this is a vote for growth. The growth is already allowed here. What I'm voting is for better growth.
Thanks, Angela.
Yeah, the question isn't whether or not we have apartments. I know that was a big point of contention at the microphone today. The question is whether the apartments are built over a business or not. It's not how many stories will they be. I know there was much made about there's an increase in height for these buildings, but we're talking about 5 feet. We're not talking about adding stories on. We're talking about the pitch of a roof. When we looked 15 months ago at a by-right plan, what this development would look like without these amendments, what we saw was less green space, increased traffic, greater pressure on parking in the area itself. What we have here is a compromise made to hopefully address a lot of the concerns that were raised tonight, and also allow for greater flexibility in the types of businesses that we hope to attract here in the borough. I'm sorry? Okay. Understood. Concerns about infrastructure, about traffic, about stormwaters, about schools, those aren't the discussions of today, but your opinions on these have been heard. They were heard in prior council when these comments came up, when we considered a by-right plan or other amendments or other proposed amendments. What we have before us is, I think, a good compromise with the understanding that this is going to be developed. It's not our place to stop it. We don't own this land. That's all I have.
Thank you.
From a business owner standpoint, I have a business in Millersville, and I'm very thankful that I was able to find a location that is actually zoned for said business. There's not much of that available in Millersville. And with the school and the existing housing, there's little growth or little available growth for commercial purposes and businesses to come to the area, or desirable locations for businesses to come to the area. And I feel like this is a good location for small shops and restaurants and cafes to prosper and give us residents something to look forward to going to and enjoying. I think that would increase the desirability of this location. And that's what's been currently in the code, and I feel that that's for a reason.
speak.
Sure. I think there are always trade-offs with every possible change that can occur in a neighborhood or area. And I appreciated so many of the comments that were directed at issues related to environmental concerns, farmland preservation, and so forth. I see this development as actually being something that helps preserve farmland by sort of infilling areas that are available to do that in a way that also preserves some of the native habitat that's still there in terms of greenways. I think there is the plan itself has a good mix of individual homes and the apartments. I agree with the idea that 5 feet is not significant to the point of calling these buildings high-rises. It's being done in order to have a consistent, more aesthetic look to the neighborhood. The concerns given today were well stated. I understand the constituents' concerns about things like walkability, traffic, how many parking spaces there are going to be. But under what we're currently voting on, those are not things that are exactly solved tonight. Certainly, walkability is addressed through the plan, and the idea of these apartment buildings cutting down on the number of parking spaces in the development is a component of the plan.
Yeah, well said. I appreciate everyone's comments. I think, like Mike said, there are lots of things that can be addressed, including infrastructure, police need, fire access, pedestrian walkways, and we know that we will have productive conversations about those things. With Garmin, they've proven to be a wonderful developer to work with. Someone made a comment about us supporting the developer, not the residents. And I just want to clarify and make sure everyone understands that everyone up here worked very hard to be elected. And it is a job. And we want what's best for Millersville. We're all residents, we all live here. And we are taking the information that we have and making the best decision for the future of Millersville. The comprehensive plan talked about sustainability in all aspects, including fiscal, developing this land and allowing for standalone apartments, in my opinion, will help position the borough better and improve housing stock, alleviate pressure on other farmland. To some degree, I almost regret not pushing for higher density like the county had wanted when we did the comprehensive plan, because we see all the developments that are potentially proposed in the future around us. And that's because people need places to live. And if we give them places to live, it alleviates the pressure on the farmland that we want to preserve. With that said, there are also more preserved farmland in Lancaster County than anywhere else in the country. So we're not losing the productive farmland that makes Lancaster Lancaster. We may lose this parcel in Millersville, but it was never intended to be long-term farmland. Those are my thoughts. Did you want to make a comment?
I think that it's important to understand that these amendments are a way to continue conversations with developers so that this parcel is developed efficiently and with the best interest of the residents. So if we're talking about things like walkability, sidewalks, this plan is not for sidewalks and walkability right now. This is for us to be able to have those conversations when we get to that point so that we can continue to stay on a plan where everyone knows what's going on and we can all have choices in this. Like she said, we all are residents. We all live here. I live next to this. So it is not an idea of we're people who don't understand or hear you because we're your neighbors as well. So I just like to say that this is a way to move forward with a developer, because this is going to be developed, to have the conversations to make it the best we can, because it's going to be developed.
No, this is not. There are no public comments. Does anyone, council, have any further comments or discussion?
No, I think, as the gentleman from Garmin said, this is something that, there's a reason they got this far, because we voted on something before, and I think this plan is a better one than the original one we had. But other than that, I'm going to be very interested in what PennDOT comes up with. That's what I want to see, but that's in the future.
All right, well, if there's no other comments or questions, we have a motion and a second. Do we want to do a roll call vote?
She doesn't remember our names. So
Sorry.
asking the solicitor.
I just have sticky notes on it. Okay. Roll call vote. Councilmember Hoffman.
Aye.
Councilmember Barley.
Nay.
Councilmember Miklos.
Aye.
Councilmember Lane.
Aye.
Councilmember Cuthbert.
Aye.
Councilmember Koffold.
Aye.
Council President Hawk.
Aye.
Okay. 2, 3. We have 6 to 1. The motion passes.
All right, thank you, everyone.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second. All those in favor of adjournment, signify by saying aye.
Aye. Pass down, right?
I'd like it back.